Hello, everybody. My name is Mimir,
And I'm Lennex.
and just want to give a quick little update. We're still going to be coming out with the video game stuff. If you guys are liking that, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave comments on that stuff. Um, it seems like it's going pretty well. Our first video did pretty well.
Yeah, folks seem more interested in the gaming stuff than I initially thought they would be, so I'm definitely excited for sticking with it. I mean, if you guys want to watch us play video games, I'm happy to play them for you.
Yeah, me too. I know we got a couple other things in the works. We also apparently some of the stuff in the merch is going to be going out soon. So if you haven't checked that out already, make sure you do so. There's going to be some new stuff just kind of coming up because of the whole situation with, like, I think there's like 12 items or 13 items or something like that that's going to be leaving the store. So make sure you check it out and keep a lookout for the new stuff that's going to be coming out.
We're cycling out the old, we're bringing in some of the new. No telling when we're going to bring back some of the old stuff. Might be a long while, heck, might be never. So take this opportunity, grab what you like, and if you really want something to come back, let us know.
Yeah, I think it's the last chance to get the magnets, the notebooks, the 2 sneakers that we got, a couple other things. I think the keychain, something like that. Yeah. So check it out. And thanks for supporting us and everything that we're doing. You guys are showing a lot of love. But I think we're ready to get going on today's topic.
Heck yeah, I'm ready to get started.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Alien franchise.
Dun dun, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, love those movies. They were one of my favorites growing up. Because when was the first one made again? It was 86 or something like that. We found out 84.
No, first one was I think 79.
Was that what it was? I thought we looked it up last time, but
no, I think we were talking about it before. I think the first one was 79, and the sequel took like 7 years to come out, and that came out in like 86.
all right. But yeah, I mean it's older than I am for sure. So,
Oh yeah,
but oh yeah, the first one. You're right. The first one was 79. Second one was 86.
yeah.
So that's what I was thinking of the second one.
Oh, look who did his homework.
Well, to be fair, I think the second one is probably my favorite.
Easily.
It's one of those like movies that I would put on when I just kind of felt like exploring that dark space universe. 'Cause I mean, there's a lot of space stuff out there, like a lot of space content, but definitely like the whole darker theme that Ridley Scott has with it.
Exactly. The darker and like blunter technology aspect to it, and the people also acting a bit differently than they do. Like, it's definitely not Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, you got like Star Wars and stuff like that, and Star Wars is cool, and eventually we'll get around to talking about that too, but definitely Alien's got that dark feel, and it feels like a threat, like it's one of those types of like creatures that it's smart, but it's also so very animalistic that it's terrifying.
That's one of the things that got to me too. I also first saw actually Aliens, the sequel, before I ever saw any of the other ones, and it both terrified and fascinated me. I think I must have been like 10 years old when I saw that movie the first time, and irresponsible parenting. They just no one minded if I just disappeared in my room with a VHS tape. So I watched it and scared the absolute crap out of me. But I was also like really fascinated by like the character and the stories, and of course there was a hopeful ending at the end of it. So it wasn't all dark themes. It was something very different than what I was used to watching, and I thought it was just amazing. Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, of course, amazing.
Yeah, very
the alien
very
stuff.
strong like female actress, and she's She was badass.
The strong
Yes.
female actress. When people say the word strong female actress, there's typically a picture thrown up of that. It's that poster image of her, the one where she's got the gun one-handed, pointed off in the distance in one arm, and she's got like Newt, like the surrogate child, like grabbed next to her or whatever, and she's just like glaring into the distance.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good shot. What a great action shot. She looks great in that picture too.
Yeah. She was one of my favorite actresses. And I love her in Avatar. Like, I think she does great in that.
I thought it was pretty cool to see her in Avatar, just because I thought it was like a nice little James Cameron Easter. It's like I was like, oh look, James Cameron brought Sigourney Weaver back from this. I wonder if she's gonna kill any aliens. And it's like, no, change the plan. She's actually here to save aliens this time.
Yeah. But you were saying something about the aliens before I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna mention also just overall, like, yeah, just the like the aesthetics of it also is something that really always got to me too. Like one of the things that I had to ask myself later on, it's like, why did this scare me so much? It was the fact that it's like when you're watching the movie, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm looking around in the background for the alien, the xenomorph,
Yeah.
and I can't quite tell where it's hiding, and I know it's got all these places to hide.
Yeah,
the environments are great.
Yeah, I think the design of the xenomorph was great too, because it does kind of look a little bit more like industrial or mechanical in some spots. Like the tail, the way that it's segmented, you look at some of the cabling and everything that they have like on the ships or whatever that are hanging down, and then all of a sudden you just see one of the cablings move, and that's the tail, because it looks now I don't know if they decided we're going to design some of their tech around the way that we designed the alien, or if they were like, hey, let's make the alien kind of match the aesthetic of like the way that we built the set. You know, I don't know which came first. I didn't look that part up, but that definitely was like really cool, because like you see in the shadows and everything something that looks like it could be part of a ship or whatever, and then it moves and you're like, oh shit, like I didn't realize it was right there.
There's a shot in the first movie, Alien, when they're aboard the Nostromo, where there's like a shot of, I think it's like some hanging chains, like up in like a high-rise area, and apparently some fans are able to miss it if they're not looking for it. But if you stare at the image long enough, or if you freeze frame it, you can clearly see the alien hiding in the chains so well. And if your eyes are just passing over it, you miss it entirely, and it blends in. And it's such a terrifying concept that this isn't like Jason or Freddy, where it's like, oh, maybe he'll pop out because he's hiding behind something, or like you'll see him coming at you. You'll recognize the threat when it comes for you. This is a predator.
Yeah.
And this thing will.
Well, it's not a predator. No, no.
Okay. You know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, no, I know.
We'll bring in the predator species thing in a minute, but I'm talking about like this thing. It's a hunter species. This thing is a deadly threat, and it's hiding in its environment, waiting for a moment to pounce on you. It's stalking you.
Yeah, and it's been evolved to be such a terrifying killing machine. Like, I mean, it's got acid blood. It's got this giant, like spiked tail. I can't remember the right term for that.
Prehensile, which means like it's very like it's got like all this musculature in it that makes it like whip it back and
Well,
forth. Like a
yeah, I think there's a term for like having like the spike, like a scorpion or whatever.
It's like a stinger.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But it's, you know, and it's got these like huge claws, and the way that it's like face and everything is made up, like it's got the smaller mouth that can shoot out, and I think what I read was that the smaller mouth is basically used for more like consumption, and the larger mouth is used for more like attack, but it can use that smaller mouth as like a puncture. Like that thing's got a lot of force. You see it, you know, just kind of like stab through things.
Right.
With so much force.
At some point, I think we see it punch right through a human skull, like the smaller mouth thing. And
yeah.
Like, that's a lot of force.
Yeah.
Like that goes right through bone and soft tissue and brain and soft tissue. And I'm just like, good God, that's a lot.
Yeah. And not to mention that it's like, I don't think it has eyes per se, or at least I nothing I could find said that it had eyes. Some people speculated that it was like maybe inside the skull it could see through, or it was like a lot of sensing with not like echolocation, but like it could sense with like smells and like maybe like a heat vision type deal, or thermal vision, I guess I should say, or whatever. There was a lot of speculation. I couldn't find like a clear answer on it. And it fucking like climbs on walls, and it's so agile that it slips through all these vents super easily. And that's the other thing, is it's scary enough that it knows like how to knock out power, how to come after people, like the best ways to attack. Like it
understands that so quickly. Like that in the first movie, that's one of the things that really scared. Like when it first wakes up, everyone's like, "Oh, it's an infant, like it's an animal. It can't be that smart." But then it so quickly adapts to these predator habits and everything. It's like you know about like certain animals that pick up instincts, and like a gazelle born on the savannah needs to know how to run within the first couple of seconds, or it's dead.
Yeah.
For these species, it's like they need to know how to fight and survive and know seer tactics and all this other stuff in order. And apparently, electrical engineering, to knock out power within the first 24 hours of their existence, or it's dead.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean, we learn later that they're bioengineered or whatever. It's part of the lore. I'm air quoting here. It's all a mess.
Well, I've heard a couple things on that too, where some people don't really count it that way, because there's a planet. They have their own planet that they came from. So it was some people saying that the one that we see later on with like Ripley and Aliens and Alien and all that, like those earlier movies are technically later in the timeline. But those are the ones that are the like bioengineered ones. But the ones that come before those ones in the later movies, I know it's all kind of backwards, but the ones that were there beforehand, like those were the types that kind of like evolved on their planet, and then they were like adapted to like better hunting and everything through David, right? I think David was the android or whatever that did all that.
David was the android that was in the latest two movies, which were also again kind of a mess.
Yeah, but that was my understanding. Is it was, they had the earlier versions of them, and they were synthetically evolved, like engineered, I guess, to be the ones that we see like in the early movies. So the ones that we see earlier on, the first ones that we're introduced to, are the ones that were like engineered that way. Because there's a bunch of different species.
There are like tons of variants, and a lot of that, I mean, they're a super diverse alien species to begin with. I mean, it makes sense that like maybe at some point there was like some tampering genetically with them, but it's like they're like, depending on what these things eat and depending on what they assimilate or what they put eggs inside of when they grow, it'll drastically affect what comes out. I mean, we see in the third movie, which I know it's crap, but whatever. In the third movie, it gets a dog, and then like a dog xenomorph comes out.
Yeah, I think those ones are the runners, I think is what they're called.
That's the ones they're called, yeah. And I mean, they're not exactly the most threatening version, but they're also still a pretty serious threat.
Right. I mean, because it totally changes the makeup. I was doing some research on how they like procreate and everything, and one of the things I could find is I think it takes, I don't remember the exact percentage, but a lot of people were saying I think it was like 60% to 80% or something like that of its host as it's growing, and then it takes like the rest of its aspects and adds on to that. So it takes like the basic makeup, because you have the and we'll get into more of this too, but like the different face huggers. One of the things that they kind of took out of the movies was the royal face hugger. I think that might be like a deleted scene or an extended thing or something. I don't remember exactly, or maybe director's cut. I don't know, but that's the one that Ripley apparently was infected with, was the royal face hugger, and the royal face huggers produce the queens. And then I think they kind of like retconned some of that, and they said basically like it works as if a drone doesn't have like a queen, it can turn into a queen, and then that queen starts making more drones, and I don't know, it's all weird the way that there's like it's mapped out, because it's not just one singular reproductive cycle.
Right. There's a couple lines within that circle.
Yeah.
There's no telling like what could happen in between or not. I mean, the idea being that if there's only like drones or warriors or whatever around, that one of them could maybe then like turn itself into a queen and start producing eggs somehow. But
yeah, I think part of it was that's how it originally was supposed to be. That they would work that way, like we have insects here that do stuff like that. So basically, what it was is the queen like chest burster or whatever, when Ripley falls into like the big vat or forge or whatever it is, taking it with her, and then they got like her DNA back. Well, the DNA also contained at the time when she was infected with the royal, so when they cloned her, that's how she turned into like the weird like alien Ripley. Like it was like she was still her, but she had like the abilities, and her blood was acidic and everything. Them like silvery chrome teeth and everything.
Yep, in Alien Resurrection, where like her blood is slightly acidic, and she's got like some super human perception going on around her. And actually, so one of the scenes that they used to show that with, where she's playing basketball.
Yeah,
remember that? She does like a no look backwards shot from like the 3-point line.
Yeah,
yeah. Sigourney Weaver actually did that.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna give props to Sigourney Weaver. That was I'm pretty sure that was one of those first shot, no double takes. Like like she just did like a no look basket. Apparently, she told them, she's like, no, I can do that. And they were like, okay, and then she did it. I don't actually know how many takes it took or whatever, but I know that was actually Sigourney Weaver saying, no, I can take that shot from like the 3-point line, no looking, one handed.
Yeah, I mean, she is pretty badass, and her character is pretty badass.
She is. I got a lot of respect for her, and I saw her in a lot of movies as a kid, and that really warmed me up to Sigourney Weaver. And only one of them was Aliens. I saw her in other stuff too, like Holes and whatever else. And then there was and we both talked about seeing her in Avatar, and there's other stuff scattered in between.
Yeah, I mean she's been in a lot of stuff, and she is like a pretty good actress. But I guess back to like the whole queen situation. I guess there's different types of like queens as well, and I think the alien that they took out of her after they cloned her took some of her DNA with her, and that's why it has the womb. It doesn't lay eggs, so it birthed the other one that was more humanoid than like the rest of the xenomorphs, because it came from a womb. So there's that version of it, but it didn't see the queen as its mother. It's seen Ripley as its mother.
Right. There was that scene in you're talking about the scene in Resurrection where so it gives birth to like the new super alien human hybrid creature. Yeah,
and it's got like this weird like skeletal looking face.
It's got a bunch of human features on its face, and its eyes are super sunken in.
Yeah, and that one is more humanoid because it came from the womb of a queen instead of being hatched from an egg and like evolving from that. And since that Ripley was a clone, she also kind of had some of the more like alien DNA and everything like we've seen. So that's why she had more of a stronger connection with it instead of like, because if that was regular Ripley, she wouldn't be having that shit.
Probably no, probably wouldn't have worked at all. She would have had like no mother connection to it. Like that's why it kills the actual Queen Xenomorph, and then it smells Ripley, and Ripley has this sort of like, she's looking away like she's scared, but you can see like this sort of like reluctant curiosity, like she's sort of also drawn to the creature.
Yeah.
Alien Resurrection is a weird film. Everyone, I'm just gonna go out and say it. It's a really weird film. It's got Ron Perlman in it though. It's also got a bunch of other really cool stuff going on. There's a bunch of really good, horrifically dying scenes in it, and there's that underwater scene, which still scares the ever-loving crap out of me when I think about it. When you realize, oh, by the way, these things can swim.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And but yeah, no, that's a weird movie. And yeah, the idea was that the mutant xenomorph human creature felt that connection to her, and I don't know, maybe because it was like a newborn, maybe it could have evolved into something, but it was also this brutal monster. Maybe there would have been no place for it, or maybe it had no future to begin with. But then it died in a horrible way, and they gave it a very, very sad, horrific death. And
didn't they like shoot it out into space or something, or like
Ripley did that thing where she like her blood is acidic, and so she like I don't know, I think she like scraped away like a nosebleed or something, or she flicked some of her blood at like a windscreen or at a window on the ship, and then it boiled a hole through the glass.
Because I know she did that when she was like fighting or something or whatever. She had like a nosebleed, wiped it away, threw it on the floor or whatever, and it like started burning through the floor. That's when I think we first see that, like, oh, this Ripley has acidic blood, like what the hell's going on type of thing.
Right. She gets she gets like a nosebleed or something, and then wipes it away, and then flicks it on the floor, and we see that it boils.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly how that one ended. I've only seen that one a couple times. I do really like it though. But yeah. Well, I have some grapes with him. Gripes.
Yeah,
Gripes.
Okay. Hey, I'm just saying, there's certain movies, you see them and you recognize an actor or a long-standing actor, and you're like, oh, well, maybe I didn't like the movie, but at least I got to see Ron Perlman, Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, it's more so of him as a person, but
that too. Yeah. Personal preferences for actors.
Loved him in Hellboy. Like I think he's a great actor. Yeah. I don't like him personally, but.
Understandable. You don't have to like everyone.
But yeah, there's a lot of really weird like variations or morphs or whatever you want to call like the differences between like the new ones and the old ones, and there's even like comic book series that has different like variations of them in there. I think there's even a few times where they do like DC stuff along with it too. Like Batman goes to the planet.
Yeah.
What the hell's Batman and everything that we've been talking about like recently?
I don't know, man. He's a legacy character. He's been around long enough. He's like the Simpsons, man. He's done everything.
But yeah, so like he goes to the planet and he's like trying to figure out something and ends up like having to fight these different versions of it in like two different comic book stories.
Yeah.
And then I think like there's one of them's like Killer Croc gets like infected or something like that. So there's this giant version of Killer Croc, Xenomorph Croc. Yeah, and then there's like another time where there's like an actual croc or an alligator or whatever that ends up getting infected, and this different like giant croc one comes after him. So he fights like two different like croc versions of this damn thing, and I don't know. It's weird.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things. I think it was like maybe kicked around in probably like the 80s or maybe the 90s initially. You get all these like these powerful monsters and characters, and what's one of the most popular discussions teenage boys love to have with each other? It's like, hey, who do you think would win in a fight, Batman or a Xenomorph? And as time went on, content creators started asking the same question and being like, hey, could I get away with writing a comic where Batman fights a xenomorph? Could I get away with a comic where, an alien fights a predator?
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the other things. One of the variants is like the hybrid between the two, because the one, I can't remember the name of the race of predators. So
I do. It's the Yautja or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember how to say it, but so yeah, one of them gets infected, has like a chest burster in him, and then it's kind of like a hybrid of the two. It's got like those the like mandibles that come out. It's got like the extended mouth and everything. So it's the best of both worlds in a terrifying way. Like they're so fucking strong.
Oh yeah, it had a lot of potential for a crossover there. It's unfortunate that the concept was brought about in a movie that just wasn't that great.
Yeah, I think there's because it happens at the end of Alien vs Predator 1, I think, and then Alien vs Predator 2, I think it fights it or whatever. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I watched the both.
It's created in the first movie at the end where the predator that we've been following with our human protagonist ends up dying in the final fight, and after they carry away his body and then lay it on the ship, as they're flying away and leave the body alone, we see the body twitch and then the chest burster come out and then it's got the little mandibles on it and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty badass. Like when the chest burster comes out and then all of a sudden it opens up the mandibles and everything, you're like, oh fuck, two of the world's like deadliest hunters.
It's a great lead-in for the next movie. It's like I said, it's just unfortunate that the next movie kind of sucks.
Yeah, like I said, I don't remember a whole lot about like the Alien versus Predator movies. I wasn't as big on Predator as I was Alien. I mean, Predator was still pretty cool, but that was like not really high up there for me.
The only reason that those two franchises ever crossed paths with each other was because in Predator 2, when the final fight happened, you've seen Predator 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, but yeah.
Remember, so the what's-his-face, the detective guy, he goes on board the Predator ship, and he's in the trophy room, and he looks at the trophy wall and sees all the skulls and weapons and stuff scattered. And so you get this idea that it's like, oh, this is a trophy wall, and these guys have been at this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then you see the, and one of the sides is a xenomorph skull. And that was meant to be just like a fun little Easter egg thing where someone's like, oh my god, it's a xenomorph skull. But then the fans saw it, recognized it, and were like, it has to be in the same universe now. Confirmed. It's a crossover. There's no taking it back. These things all interact with each other. So every time an Alien movie came out or every time someone talked to aliens, it's like, will the Predators be in it? Anytime someone talked to Predator movie, will there be an alien in it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I like the video game too. I don't know if you ever played like the pretty early video game for like Alien versus Predator or whatever.
I played a Predator one. I think it was like the Concrete Jungle one where you played as a predator trying to like hunt down bits of lost technology and shit.
Well, there's one that you can choose to either be an alien, a predator, or like a space marine.
Oh.
And like they're all three different storylines.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if they're all three different, but it's at least from three different perspectives when you play.
Okay.
So you choose one and you go down the path of that for the game, and then there's an ending. And then you can restart the game as one of the other two, you know. But that game was pretty sweet. Actually, I don't know if it was I don't remember if it was actually like the earliest version of that I played, but I did do like a little looking up some of the stuff for that one. And I think that's one of the... I don't know if the comic book came first or if this came first, but I think that's one of the first times that we hear about the alien planet. Because there's the Predator's planet, and I can't remember the name of that one. I can't remember the name of the aliens planet. Like, a lot of these got weird names. If I didn't have them written like I needed to have it written down. I didn't.
I don't even think the Predators even have their own planet.
I think they do. But I know at the end of the Marine route and the end of the Predator route, separately, it talks about like they found the coordinates to the aliens' homeworld.
Oh, okay.
And in the comic books, and like I said, I don't know which one came first, but in the comic books they talk about like two different factions of aliens that have like a civil war, and there's two different queens that are like in control.
Okay.
I think they call. I don't know if it actually is like that. One of them is red, and the other ones are like the original like black. So I don't know if that part is canon. There was some people saying like, no, they're not actually red. They just differentiated, you know, because it's easier to tell when you're watching or when you're like reading the comic and everything, you know, like. But they basically are like two different factions. So that right there itself kind of goes into how like intelligent these creatures are. It's not just, you know, like, oh, we're two different species or whatever. I think there was something that happened where like the Reds were saying, you know, we don't follow this queen, like, so we have our own queen now, and we're gonna fight in like factions. I don't know. It's all super weird without actually going through and reading the comics and looking up more information on those ones. Like, I was just kind of doing some basic research on the different types of xenomorphs that there are, and I came across those just like by happen chance. So
you saying that actually unlocked a bit of a memory for me, actually, because I remember reading up on some of like the post alien stuff, and there was a comic. So you remember Hicks from the second Alien movie, right?
yes, sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. So Hicks so they killed him off for the third movie. Again, another reason to hate the third movie. But the third movie went through a shit ton of rewrites, and initially one of the things they were going to do, I think, got turned into a video game, someone said, or they turned some of the plot into a comic, where Hicks is the only one that wakes up and then has his own adventure, and then at the end of it, he uncovers the coordinates for the alien homeworld. And apparently that's where the fourth movie was supposed to take place. That's the way they wanted the franchise to go, but cue another rewrite, and then they were just like, nah, Hicks is dead now.
Well, I do know that there was also some of the, like, I don't know if this part is actually canon or if that was just some theory, that the quote-unquote homeworld was when, like, the engineers, which are, like, in Prometheus and stuff like that, like those beings that we see, if the engineers actually accidentally created the alien homeworld. I don't know if that lines up correctly, because one of the other ways that you can get infected was with that black goo. It was like the spores or whatever. Which is what we see in Prometheus. When the spores like infect a person, they kind of go crazy.
It's just goo in Prometheus. It was Covenant, the second, well, the one after that, where it's spores. And personally, I wasn't as big of a fan of the spores because the spores seem like a little bit random to me.
Well, I think what it was is when you see one of the engineers, or I don't know if he was actually an engineer, because there's different parts with that too. Like, there's like the engineers and then like the civilian type or whatever. Because then we see later, and I think Covenant, where David comes down or something and releases like all the spores or whatever onto like the rest of the that race. I can't remember the name of that either.
The engineer race, the precursor ones.
Yeah. And so when he opens that up and he kind of like breathes it in, and two things can happen that they explained. You can either have a viable host or a non-viable host. And a viable host will get infected and kind of transform and start the process of creating like a new xenomorph, whichever life cycle or reproductive cycle that may be. The second is, I think it just kind of kills you, or just makes you literally kind of go insane and end up dying like through like the infection like later on or whatever. That part was a little unclear. I think they explained it a little bit in Prometheus, but so yeah, there's the goo or the spores or whatever. It's saying it's the same substance. It's that black like virus thing or whatever.
Either they're in spore form or they've been turned into a liquid form. I think the liquid form was like meant for like storage or whatever.
Yeah, I think what it was, it held it in so it didn't like like escape or whatever. It was like a binding agent type
easier,
deal.
And it's also easier to transport a liquid than it is a gas. So.
But then what they did is the precursors, we'll call them, they actually were creating this as like a, God, what did they say? I can't remember if they said that they knew it was supposed to be like a bioweapon, or if it was something where it was like they were trying to evolve life in a certain way. And again, I don't know if what they did was they created that, or if they found something and started like gene manipulation to create like the xenomorph. And I don't remember how it started, but I know that they fucked with it a little bit, and that's what kind of changed it. And then David later comes along and fucks with it, and that changes it. So then we get the ones that we see in the original movies.
My understanding of it, and this is from what I remember when I heard that there was like more material for this out there. After I saw Prometheus, and which I was like, I was sort of shrugging my shoulders at it, where I was like, the movie kind of fell on its face a couple of times. Cool. There was some really cool stuff in it, but at the other times I was like, why did you do this? And all that.
Yeah.
Like, the dumbest exploration team of best of the best guys I've ever seen in my life. There was that whole thing where it's like, how did you've 3D mapped this entire cave and you have someone literally in your ear with 24/7 comms. How can you possibly get lost walking out of here?
Yeah.
It's easier to get lost at Disney World, man, with a fully staffed park. How? But anyway, so there's a bunch of different like stuff out there. There's deleted scenes. There's also different script versions out there. They're floating around the internet. You can probably still find them pretty easily. They're basically different versions of the way that encounter goes down between what's his face, the old guy, David, and the engineer that they wake up. There's one version which I think makes the most sense, which is the engineer wakes up and is then pissed off because he realizes he's not being woken up by his people, and he has a chest burster inside of him, and he's like, "You fucking idiots! I'm sick, and I was hoping someone who could help me could wake me up. Now it's just you assholes, and you're just asking me for shit. Like, the fuck? No wonder I'm pissed off. I'm gonna rip this robot's head off now." Like, poor anger control, and that makes a lot of sense to me too. Like, it's the reason he's so goddamn mad. It's like, I went to sleep, and all of a sudden these goddamn monkeys woke me up, and now I'm gonna die. Fuck. Then there's another version where it's a bit more of a conversation between the engineer and David. The old guy, what's his face, is there, and he's trying to get like answers, or he's trying to get like quote unquote immortality, which again, it's hell of a gamble that this guy can just hand it to him somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird, but it's of all the ways to get immortality, you think that just some sleeping alien is going to be holding on to it in his back pocket.
Well, I mean, how old is he? So.
Well, he was clearly been sleeping. Whatever.
Well, I know, but yeah.
Anyway, so there's it's pretty interesting, but what I remember from the conversation is the alien talks about how it's like, oh, we seeded life on so many planets. Yours was just one of the few viable ones. And it goes a little bit into this conversation about how the engineers believe in the cycle of death and sacrifice and then life after. And sort of how the black goo is like the ultimate representation of what that means.
Okay.
Or is supposed to be, or something like that. And the idea that I guess there's two things that I got from it. It's the idea that asking for immortality flies in the face of this creature's faith so much is why he loses his mind and then decides he's going to wipe out Earth, because the engineer wakes up and then right away apparently it's like, oh, he's going to Earth and he's going to wipe it out now, and it's just like, what? Why? What did we do?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a theory, but you said there's one more?
Yeah, there's another one where he talks about wait, I'm trying to remember now. It's not quite that he's mad religiously. It's that he wakes up and it goes against his set of beliefs. It's not that he gets mad. It's that he's just. I hate to phrase it like this. It's not that he's mad. It's just that he's disappointed. Where he goes ahead, he goes into like this little soliloquy where he talks about forming humanity or whatever, and there's something in there about Jesus. I think like something about how like Jesus was like taught by the aliens or whatever, and then humans missed the message or something, or they didn't embrace the message enough somehow. And it's not fully explained, but you can take away the implication. And then David is giving half answers anyway, and then we don't know what David is supposed to say then, because then David turns to explain something, and then the old guy just goes, "I don't care. Translate what I say next." And then you get this idea where it's like, oh wow, no wonder this alien is pissed off, because he's literally giving out all this deep lore and information right now. And this old guy is only like, no, making me immortal, like it's freaking Dragon Ball Z all of a sudden, and he's hoping for the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, I guess one of my theories and some of the stuff that I've kind of heard, and what I got out of the movies was that he woke up and their original plan was to like kind of take over and conquer. At least like this sect of them, because you see in the ship, they actually have like a xenomorph, like almost looking like he's crucified type of deal, like there's a xenomorph up on the wall carved in, and then there's like all the eggs and everything.
Laid out like almost a ritual, like organized fashion around it.
Yeah, so my kind of understanding of it is that this is just kind of who they are. They like to just kind of take over and be in control and just use these as like their religious icons. So they're like, you know what, like we're gonna let the xenomorphs take over. We've created them, but now we're going to like worship them because they are like the perfect being, quote unquote. That's my understanding of why like they behave that way. So I guess when he wakes up, he's like, kind of gotta follow through, like I'm gonna conquer, I'm gonna destroy type of thing. That's kind of what I got out of it. And I like in which one was it? Was it 1 or 2? Where you see the pilot, with like the hole in its chest or whatever.
The first one, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of, some people were saying like, oh, well, that's got to be one of the like precursors. But if you look, it doesn't quite match up. Like the skull is a little bit different and everything. But then if you watch the later movies, the design kind of changed a little bit, where it's like, oh, that's just kind of part of the space suit. And it's like they lay it out the same way, like in the chair and everything. But again, I don't know why. I think it just had to do with how they took the story in a different direction to try and change things up.
Yeah.
But I do think it was supposed to be, at least at the time, it was supposed to be another race, and we see, like, whatever this alien was had this chest burster, and it was just supposed to be kind of like a thing where it's like, well, okay, well, so these aliens are everywhere. These xenomorphs are everywhere. They're taking over like other like species and everything, other alien species. And then Prometheus and Alien Covenant or all that or whatever try and like hijack that story and try and make it more of like, this is what's happening now. Like we're rewriting like the history of it, because there wasn't much history. So I think that's what happened, is once those movies kind of came out, they just kind of took the story in a different direction. That's why I was reading some of it, and some of the fans just didn't think that like these are really all that canon. They're like, okay, they don't really match up with kind of the direction things were going. It just kind of took a hard left and changed up a little bit.
Right.
So I think that's what they did.
Part of that, I think, like I was saying before, constant rewrites. Honestly, I think any of the versions I talked about, or even your theory that you were talking about, I think that's pretty good, by the way. But unfortunately, what we got for Prometheus was, they're just doing what they're doing just cause, and David's gonna do what he does just cause.
Like, yeah, and that was strange too. I want to ask you, why do you think David thought so highly of the xenomorphs and wanted to like engineer these better and help like xenomorphs take over? Like is it something that, and I mean you see it in like the video games and stuff too, where like the androids are unbothered by the xenomorphs, or even sometimes helping the xenomorphs. And it's like, is it part of the hive mind concept? Because that kind of goes into like how they communicate and everything. Like the xenomorphs are hive minds. Well, that's kind of one theory. Some of the other theory is like they use pheromones and things like that to kind of like talk to each other. But it is kind of similar to like how bees and stuff operate, or ants operate with like pheromones and stuff. So like the queen can kind of command like all the drones and everything, just like a beehive does. So are the androids affected by this stronger, or are some species more like prone to falling under like some type of influence? Or
I think it might be, personally, I think it's more like a logic flaw with androids. I think they mentioned in one of the movies that early androids are prone to like behavioral issues. I think it might be because like the androids are always admiring like how efficient the aliens are, like their life cycle. They start noting stuff like, it's very simple and straightforward, and like they're perfect for what they evolve into, and like they're already so well suited to what their purpose is. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like something in the androids that makes them think that this is like an ultimate goal to achieve to, or something. Like because the androids know they're androids, and so they go ahead and they see this, and then they're like, this is like me. I should, or in a way, it's like me. This is a very like straightforward, perfect form of life. Like it's engineered towards a purpose, or it's so perfect for its purpose, it has to be engineered. So maybe it has some sort of sympathy for it, or some kinship. I don't know. Maybe personally, I think it's more like a logic flaw, and also just like the idea of androids being the bad guys, or like is like it's a trope as old as androids almost.
Yeah, I mean, I get it too, that like the androids also possibly don't like humans and the way that humans behave and everything. I understand that. Maybe they don't like how they're treated and stuff, and so they're like, okay, well, anything to get back at those pesky humans type of deal. But it kind of becomes very like they're almost like zealots. Is that the right word? like religious zealots for the xenomorphs.
There's like an obsession.
Yeah.
Like okay.
So
involved.
so zealots is the backwards one, right? Where it's like
zealotry is like a frenzied service almost. But I think they don't really serve it because the aliens don't really adopt the androids or anything.
No, but I think like
they become fanatical.
Yeah.
Like they start serving the aliens of their own will, but they do shit that the aliens don't care. Like I don't know. It's getting hard to put into words, but they don't work for the aliens. They don't follow them, or they're not like allowed into the hive. They're not one of them, but at the same time they admire their form of life, and so they start to like the aliens more than they like the humans.
Yeah, and then we have Data later on, and he makes like his own sacrifice and everything for humanity. So, oh, is that no? Did I just throw Star Trek in there? I think I did.
Star Trek in there.
Who is the android in Alien and Aliens?
Alien, the first one, that was Ash. It was Ash. Second one was Bishop.
Bishop was the one I was thinking. I don't know why I thought Data. Jesus Christ,
Mr. Data, what are you doing?
Maybe he just reminded me of him or something. I don't remember. But yeah. So Bishop was the one that did like the sacrifice, right? Where he something was needed or whatever to like help with the ship, or was that the first one? It's been so long since I watched them.
The Bishop was so Ash was an antagonist. He's a bad guy in the first movie, and then Bishop was a good guy in the second movie. That was like the twist.
Yeah.
Cue James Cameron joke about making your robot the good guy in the second movie.
But yeah, so not all androids were terrible. So I think they. Man, see, it's got to be some type of influence, unless it really was just like a fluke, or like some type of design flaw where they just naturally started to dislike humanity or whatever, and Bishop was like an outlier. I don't know, but
Bishop apparently was also modified. I think there was something about like a behavioral chip because he was an older model android, and so they put like an extra chip in his brain to help control him. There was also that scene. What was it? Yeah, he does that trick with the knife. Remember the one that like every middle school kid with a knife emulated after he saw that in a movie? It's that one where he does get the blade in between each of the fingers and then back to the point between the index and thumb.
Yeah.
And then do that as fast as you can several times in order to impress your friends and maybe take off take off some skin or
plastic knives and forks in the lunchroom. Yeah.
teach your parents exactly why they should have never given you a pocket knife. Okay. Yeah, there was a thing in that, and when Bishop did it, where I think he did it for himself, and then he accidentally like flicked one of his own fingers or something to show that he was like flawed somehow.
I don't remember that. I know
I might be pulling that out of my ass. I think I might be remembering something from a different film.
I remember he put his hand over top of one of the other guy's hands, and he was like freaking out because he started like going faster and everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, knock it off, and he's trying to pull away and everything. And he's holding his hand there, like doing it.
Who was he getting? He was getting what's his face, Game Over Man guy.
Yeah.
Darn it! It's gonna bug me. I don't remember his name.
It's game over, man. It's game over.
So many quotable lines in that movie, and I think he delivers like half of them. Along with "Get away from her, you bitch."
Yeah, fucking love it.
Such a straightforward line, but so good. So now that we're back to talking about one of the greatest movies ever made, there is something cool that I remember digging up when I was looking up information about that movie. So they did an interview where they did that movie, and they were talking about it. Apparently, it took 7 years for them to make a sequel to Alien. Even though the first movie was really good, and everyone was like, "Yeah, we'd love to see another Alien movie." The studio, this is another case of the studio not knowing what they had, because Fox was adamant that it's like, no one wants another sci-fi horror film.
Yeah, I did hear a bunch of stuff about that too, where it was like they thought it would do okay. They didn't know like that it was going to be such a hit, that it was going to be such a great like franchise. So yeah, it was definitely one of those things where they're like, well, I mean, it's pretty cool. We'll see how it does. And then it fucking blew up.
Oh, here, let's make a movie called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Yeah, that'll do better. I'm being facetious here, but I'm very on board with the idea that studios very often do not know what they have until well after the fact, and even then, they usually don't know what to do with it.
Well, I mean, if you look at like nowadays too, sometimes studios they got their nose so far up their own ass that they think that they have the next big hit, and it flops terribly.
Because everybody has to get their 5 cents in with the script. Like the punch-ups are a thing where, it's like, oh, the script comes to the building. You need to do something to get your name on a credit roll. So, you put in your one line of dialogue no matter how bad it is.
Yeah, and, objectively, like, there's some really great movies out there that they tried hard, but they didn't, like, try hard, if you know what I mean. Like
I get you.
They went and they took their idea and they ran with it. They didn't say, how can we make this appeal to the people? They were like, we're going to create this movie and we'll see how it does. They took like a nice original idea or some type of like variation of something else that happened, and they're like, how can we like create this the way that we want to create it? And now all the time it's like, well, how can we make everyone love this? And it's like, that's not what you got to do. You got to make your movie, and you got to make it with all your heart and soul, and hope people like it. Don't try and pander, because then you're just gonna you might like be the holy grail for like certain groups of people, but you're not gonna, be everyone's cup of tea. And I get it. A lot of people don't like Alien either. A lot of people don't like sci-fi stuff.
Not every movie's for everyone. That's fine.
Right, but I know some people who don't really like sci-fi stuff or don't really like thriller or horror movies or whatever, but they enjoy like the Alien franchise because it is pretty iconic, and they're like, wow, like I didn't think I was gonna like that, but that was really awesome.
I think there's less excuse for that in this case, because at the time that they're saying that there's no interest in sci-fi horror, Star Wars is experiencing probably its peak popularity.
Yeah.
And so that there's much less reason for that argument. Like imagine original trilogy Star Wars hype, and then saying with a straight face, people aren't interested in sci-fi horror.
Well, I think it was because Star Wars wasn't so like
it's space opera, I get it,
yeah,
but still, come on.
Yeah, so I mean, because it was going in that direction where it was an epic, like it was something that was like kind of, there were some dark moments or whatever too, but it was more of like lively, more action packed,
adventures, love,
yeah,
crazy sets and backgrounds,
and then we have, Alien franchise, where it's very dark and very dismal and like very thriller, and you had like horror movies and thriller movies and everything like that before, but when these came out, it was definitely something, because it was less so of like, oh, this weird killer or something like that. It was, this is something so terrifying that I think it made a lot of people think of like, what if, instead of your everyday like, oh my god, the serial killer like chased me around the house or whatever. This is like, you're trapped in space or on another planet, whatever. You were trapped with this killing machine. Like, that was terrifying.
That was pretty bad. And to redirect it before we get too far off topic, so it took them a long time to make the damn movie in the first place. And when they did, they apparently almost didn't get Sigourney Weaver back for the second movie.
Really?
Yeah, because Sigourney Weaver, don't get me wrong, I love her as an actress. Personally, though, the woman has some beliefs that I don't really agree with.
Yeah.
Those beliefs also affected how she wanted the movie to be made. So she had some demands to be made of the movie. For example, Sigourney Weaver is very anti-gun. She did not want the movie to have. First off, the movie can't have guns in it. Second, she said that she wanted Ripley to have sex with an alien at some point. And thirdly, Ripley had to die at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about that. I forgot about the gun part, but I did remember the other two.
So
And
yeah, they said it's like, okay, well, I guess we don't get Sigourney Weaver, and then James Cameron came aboard and pulled out the magic card that makes everyone do everything in Hollywood. Money.
more money.
Money, and yeah, cue the Doctor Evil, like, pinky to the mouth, money. Well, believe it or not, actually, Ripley was paid $1 million for her part in Aliens, and that was, I think, at the time, the biggest paycheck any female star had ever gotten for a single movie. Which I think today, like in 1986 dollars, I think today that comes out to like 2.7 million or something like that. So not a bad paycheck at all, especially for its time. And she. Considering that it was definitely a lot more than anybody else was getting at the time, she did really well for herself.
Yeah, but I think that's about an hour for the first half here. So we're gonna go ahead and split this up. Thank you all for listening. We're gonna go ahead and continue this conversation in a later episode.
Awesome. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye bye.